All right, so PTC Unite Technology. First off, we'll start with just a quick agenda of what's going to go on. So um, I'm just going to introduce ourselves, Boundary Systems, who we are and what we do. And then I'm going to dive into, the concept of handling multi-CAD data and how it's currently done. We'll talk about how Creo Parametric provides some solutions for that, and then we'll go into a live demonstration of those specific solutions, and then we'll get into some questions and answers. So by way of introductions, who are we? So we're Boundary Systems. We are a product development and lifecycle consulting company based out of Cleveland, Ohio. But we really have a nationwide reach and even actually international reach. And we have a lot of expertise when it comes to CAD data design and consulting, data management, simulation, as well as pretty much the entire product development lifecycle. Especially when it comes to using CAD or CAE to, achieve anything in the product development lifecycle. And so we've helped many of our customers achieve, higher levels of success within their fields. And as a result, we've been growing fast as a result, as a reflection of that as well. So again, that's just by way of who we are. Now, diving straight into the content of what we're going to talk about. So I'll start off with a few different questions, and you guys, I'm not going to ask for, live responses to these questions, but you can think about these. So just when it comes to, having difficulty with, leveraging multi-CAD data, right? So data from, different CAD systems, be it from SolidWorks or from Creo or from CATIA or from NX. Typically that's a challenge to handle all of that together, right? And then sometimes you may need to to have some design changes to that data as well, right? And then that's even more difficult to modify CAD data that's non-native to your CAD application, right? And then finally, there's also some challenges with CAD data migration as well. So for example, company A buys up company B, right? And company B was using NX and company A is on Creo, right? And then how do you then migrate all of that legacy CAD data that company B had on NX, right? And usually that's going to be some cost some capital intensive conversion effort to to translate all of their NX data into Creo data at the start once you purchase the company or things like that. And again, the scenario may be different, but you could still have CAD data migration issues that you need to work through as well. Just delving into a little bit of detail with all of these examples here. PTC did a study, or I guess a survey of a few thousand manufacturing organizations, and some of the things they found were, for example, 49% of users say that importing models from other CAD tools is a challenge in and of itself, right? So you're using Creo and you just want to import a model from some other CAD system, that's a challenge. And again, this survey was done within the last, I don't know, like 8 to 10 years. And so this is with the advent of, neutral formats like steps and IGES files and things like that. And so again, even with, the step format, 49% of users are still saying, hey, this is a challenge for us. And then also, 59% of those people that actually do get it imported say, okay, once we have it in here, we want to try and modify it or make some changes to it, and we're also struggling with that as well, right? And then when it comes to late stage design changes, again, this isn't news to anyone here. Your customers at the last minute want something to they want you to change a particular design objective or design deliverable by 50 or 80% from what they initially told you it was going to be, and they need the result in 2 days, right? And so all of a sudden, you have, some dramatic or, last minute design changes that you have to make, right? Or, you're running some tests and the tests don't come out to what you expect them to be, and you're, against the clock to deliver a new design. And so you have to go, make some radical changes to your CAD model and then, validate to make sure everything's working correctly, right? And so, a lot of people have difficulty managing late stage design changes, and this is sometimes even on the same CAD system as well, or on different CAD data files. And then finally, migrating CAD data as well is also pretty challenging, and so whether this is a takeover of a company, or a company that was formerly on a certain CAD system and then switched over to another, and so then because it's difficult to migrate CAD data, what you then find is people aren't necessarily reusing existing CAD data. Rather, productivity is wasted, redesigning parts, right? So the IP already exists in a certain CAD format, but because it's challenging to convert that, your engineers are just wasting time, redesigning something that's already been designed and not inheriting that, that data. And in the case where you can migrate it, it's usually either cost or labor intensive to actually perform the migration. And so in response to all of these different factors, PTC introduced a few different tools to address that, and I'll highlight a couple of them in this webinar today. The first is PTC Creo Unite Technology. And so what is Unite Technology? So Unite Technology is an extension that PTC created to allow for the import of native SolidWorks, CATIA, and NX files, right? And what I mean by native, I mean, your customer or your supplier is not sending you a step file. They're not sending you a Parasolid file. They're sending you their native NX file, right? And you can take that and open that in Creo, right? And because it's working on the native, CAD package, all of a sudden, whenever they have an update, right, they can send you the new file, and you realize, oh, Creo realizes that it's it's a new file of the same object, and it can then easily update seamlessly, right? Now, not only does it do that, but because it can open the native CAD package file, it has some pretty cool features that come with it as well. So, for example, Unite Technology also enables on-demand conversion, right? So, say for example, I have a certain file, or I'll call that file A. And I just need to have that in my design. I'm not going to make any geometric changes to it at all. I just want to make sure that it's present, it's there, it's in my design. I'm reusing the existing design with no modifications, right? In that case, I don't need to change it. I just need to import, the NX file that's called file A, put it in my model, in my Creo model, and that's it, right? Now, on the other hand, I have file B, right? That's also an NX model. I bring that in, and then I realize, oh, well, I have to change something on here, right? Well, once I start to make a geometric change, Creo realizes, okay, you're making a geometric change. I can't save this as NX because Creo doesn't have the NX kernel. And so Creo will then pull out a pop-up saying, hey, you're going to make a change to this. Do you want to convert this file now? And literally, it's just a one-click button to say okay, and Creo will convert that file from an NX to a Creo PRT file. And then you can continue, making your change to the file, right? And so literally, it's just a one-click button to, convert the file, and you're on to making your design change, right? And then the other piece of technology that PTC added to help manage this is the flexible modeling extension, right? And so earlier I talked about, making your design change to a converted NX file. This is one of the tools that you can use to make that design change, right? So for example, so in this case, what is flexible modeling? Well, flex modeling is is an extension that PTC created that allows you to make essentially direct editing kind of modifications to existing files or geometry, right? So in this case, you're not necessarily creating any quote unquote new geometry, right? But rather you're taking the existing geometry that's already there and you're making modifications, right? You're making a hole bigger or smaller. You're moving a whole location from one point to another, right? You're modifying a pattern. You are, for example, moving a particular feature, maybe 2-3 inches one way or the other, right? So minor, modifications where it's not like you're doing a complete makeover, right? But you just want to make some minor late stage design changes. All of those can be achieved, with flex modeling. And the other thing about flex modeling is that, again, it's CAD agnostic, right? So flex modeling doesn't care if you're using it on a Creo part or an NX or a SolidWorks or a STEP or an IGES or, a neutral or parasolid, whatever the file is, as long as it has solid geometry, flex modeling is going to work on it, right? And so that's the beauty of flex modeling as well. And so that by way of introduction, now I will dive into a live demonstration. So hang tight here, I'll switch screens and we'll go ahead and show you the softwares. Yep, okay. So what we have is this model here, and basically this is the start of developing what's going to be a shaver, right? And so I have most of the shell created, right? And this is going to be the head, and there's still a few parts missing, like what's going to be the the cover at the back over here. Now you'll notice that this is a mixed assembly, right? So some of these parts are in general it's a Creo assembly, right? .asm with the Creo symbol over here, and it has a Creo assembly, right? But some of the other assemblies are non-Creo models, right? So for example, these are CATIA assemblies, right? And so again, this is an example here where we can just import or use a CATIA model in our Creo assembly, and in this case we don't want to make any changes to it whatsoever. We're just leveraging existing data, opening that into our Creo assembly and just using that as is, right? Now the other thing I can also do here is I can also import a SolidWorks part, or I guess assembly, and also start to make some modifications to that. So we'll show how that's done. I'll come to SolidWorks assembly. Say let's open that. All right, and we'll just say default constraint. Yep, there we go. All right, and so one of the things I like about Creo 4 is that it performs some import validation checks as soon as you import the model in, and it'll just pull out the notification center here to warn you of potential issues that it finds. So for example, in this case, if I go ahead and investigate this in this model, what it's basically going to tell me is if I do an import validation, is it saying here, I couldn't solidify that part, right? So now I know I can't send this model to manufacturing without going in here and fixing that part up, right? Now when it comes to how to fix imported data, right, to make sure that it's clean and it solidifies correctly and all of that, we have another webinar video on that. I believe it's Import Data Doctor. It's on our YouTube page. You can go ahead and check that out, and it goes through a lot of the nuts and bolts of modifying imported data. So I'm not going to go through that now because we already have some content on that. We're going to be working on this part over here, right? So go ahead and hide all the other parts. So do that, and activate this one. All right. And so we'll flip over to the bottom here, and what we're trying to do here is, for example, make some, design changes to this SolidWorks, part that we just assembled in here, right? So first off, I'll notice these 4 features were created as a pattern inside of SolidWorks, right? It looks like it was a pattern. But right now, it's just a dumb imported model, so Creo doesn't recognize that. So we now can start to build in some intelligence back into this model. And the way we'll do that is by using flexible modeling, right? So this is the additional extension I told you about, right? So Unite Technology enables me to bring in the SolidWorks model, right, as its own file without having to convert it. Flexible modeling now allows me to, build in some intelligence back into the model and also edit the model as well. So I'll start off with, say for example, let's see, first have to select my geometry, and then we'll do a pattern recognition, right? And it says, okay, it has all those black dots and all those 4 instances. So it says, okay, all 4 of those instances look similar. So I'll recognize that as a pattern with some math behind it. And so I'll say, okay, and now that's happy and done, right? And I can see over here, again, it's a SolidWorks part file, but I have my Creo flex modeling pattern recognition feature on that, right? Now, as soon as I pick on this guy again and I say, okay, let's move this, right? So I'll say, let's move by something. Now this says, okay, hold on, you want to make some changes, but this is a non-native Creo model, right? So I can't make any changes and save it back as SolidWorks. So do you want to convert this model, right? And it's as simple as hitting OK. And now, on demand, Creo is going to convert this from a SolidWorks part to a Creo model that I can then make changes on. And again, this only applies for geometric changes, right? So if I'm making non-geometric changes, like for example, when I, added the pattern recognition feature, or if I want to, add datum planes or analysis features or things like that, I can do that all day long on a non-native Creo model, right? But as soon as I want to make a change to the geometry itself, that's when Creo is going to ask you to convert, right? So in this case, I'll pick on this boss again, and we'll say let's move this guy, based on this edge over here. Bump that out about 0.5. And again, you'll notice right now only this one feature is moving, right? And so if I want to pass that on to the others, inside of the move feature, there's the option here to propagate to a pattern. And so I'll just go ahead and pick my pattern recognition feature. And now Creo is going to understand, okay, I'm going to pass that move on to all the other members. And so when I hit OK, all of them get that 0.5 move, right? So again, this is a case where we've decided, based on this new design, that this is the best geometry for that, and we can easily modify existing CAD data without having to rebuild this from scratch, just so that way we can have these at their correct locations, right? We'll also switch to this guy over here as well, and again, this is a case where we want to make some changes to this model, and we don't want to have to rebuild the entire model from scratch, right? And so what we're going to do here is we're going to what we're going to do here is we're going to start by recognizing the round, right, around everything here. And once we do that, then we're going to start selecting some of this geometry. So I'll say I'm going to select all of this here, add this guy to it, and we're going to do a move. And let's see here. So yep. So in this case with the move, I'm going to switch this actually to a move with a dimension, because I want the angle between this face and this face to be about 115 degrees, right? Again, based on our new design, no, that's not what I wanted. Based on our new design, that's what we determined to be appropriate, right? So again, instead of having to recreate this entire assembly, this entire model from scratch inside of Creo, I can just modify the existing SolidWorks model that's converted, right? Modify that geometry to 115 courtesy of flexible modeling, and I can hit OK, and Creo regenerates the geometry, and now that's happy, right? Likewise, we also decided, this pocket over here can be widened a little bit, and so I can go ahead and pick on this guy over here, hold Control, pick on this, and say we want to widen that pocket by about an inch or so. I can go ahead and easily, let's see here. So we selected both of those, and we'll just say we want to move that, right? And we'll move using this edge as our direction reference, and we're just gonna tell it in here. Okay, let's move by 1. All right, Creo shows a geometric preview, and whenever I select OK, yep, there we go. Now I have that pocket expanded, right? So again, we're not having to completely redesign from scratch just so that we can incorporate these new design changes into existing legacy data. We can just start to repurpose different areas of the model that we need, and again, as we're designing this, all of this is going to fit into our new design scheme, right? So that essentially covers it for the demo portion of this. So I'll switch back here to the presentation, and then we'll go through a couple more things here before we close out here. All right. So just by way of a summary, what does Creo provide? So first, a couple different things. One is the Unite Technology platform provides the ability to open non-native Creo data. So NX, CATIA, SolidWorks, right? And embed them or use them inside of your Creo model, right? Without having to import or convert or get a step file or an IGES file or Parasolid or any of that, right? And then not only do you have that ability, you can also then start to use Creo's flexible modeling capability in cases where you do want to make some design changes to start to intelligently, select different faces, move different items, change radii, move different features one way or the other, and start to make some design changes to whatever model you need to make the design changes to. And in the case where it's a geometric design change, then Creo will essentially, it'll warn you and say, hey, we need to, to convert this, and it's just a simple one-click button at the time to convert from, CATIA or NX, to Creo, and you can go ahead and continue making your geometric design changes, right? So this essentially enables that you can leverage existing CAD data, right? You can get CAD data from customers, suppliers, vendors in CATIA, NX, SolidWorks formats, and there's no hesitation about being able to open it and make sure that the model comes in cleanly and correctly, and then also be able to potentially modify it for whatever your purposes are, right? All right, and so now that that's been said, are there any other questions for me at this time? All right, so one of the questions is, do you have to have the Unite extension before the native assembly options are available? And the answer for that is yes. The Unite collaboration capability does have to be available. And a couple other questions. I guess actually it's the same question for asked 2 different times. Is what type of licenses are required for existing Pro users? So in order to do everything I showed in this webinar, it'll be 2 different licenses. One would be the Creo. I want to say it's the collaboration extension. Or if you're speaking to to your reseller or to us, you can just mention the Unite Technology, and we'll figure out which extension that is. And then the other one for this specifically is the flexible modeling extension. Now I do know that as of Creo 3, PTC was including the Unite Technology application, or I guess extension, plus flex modeling. In the base seat of Creo, right? So I believe as of Creo 3, and again, I'll have to check if they're still doing that. Both of the extensions I showed on here, you could, if you got the cheapest seat of Creo, you would have both of those extensions available to you. And so again, this is something where, now if you have, if you're an existing legacy customer, you'd have to, check your current extension list and see if you have those, and if not, you'll have to talk with us to see what you can do to get that capability. All right. Another question is, can you send back the file to the vendor that they gave you, and can they make modifications to your changes? The answer to that would be no. And the reason for that is whenever, say for example, my vendor sends me a CATIA file, so we'll call that, block.catia, right? Whenever I open that in Creo, I can use that CATIA file as long as I don't, and I can use it natively as much as I want in assemblies, and I can, just import that and use it, right? But the moment I make a geometric change to it, then Creo will have to convert that, right, to a Creo file. So it'll convert that from, vendor.catia to vendor.prt or vendor.asm, right? Now, can I send that, file with modifications, which is vendor.asm? Can I send that back to my supplier? Yes, but in that case, they're going to receive it as a, Creo file, right, which they may not be able to open, right? Now, to also add a few different things to that response there. Can you send back? Whenever I'm sending back the file, the Unite Technology application, and I know I didn't cover that in this webinar. Unite Technology also allows you to do a save as, and also save as a third-party format as well. So, for example, in the case where I have my vendor.asm file, I also have the option to do a file save as and do save as CATIA, right? And in that case, it saves that file as a CATIA file that I can then send to my customer, to my vendor. Now, in that case, though, when my vendor receives it, it's not going to have the full feature tree, history inside of CATIA that it did went before he sent that to me. It's just going to come in just with the geometry, and pretty much that's it, right? So it's not going to have the full feature tree history on the vendor side of things. And again, the ability to do a save as, I believe that is an additional extension that would have to be purchased as compared to coming natively with the base seat. Yep. All right. So there are a few other questions here, and we probably don't have the time to get to all of these live on air right now. So For everyone else that asked questions, thank you so much for asking those. I'll make sure I follow up with all of you offline, and we'll send emails to all of you and make sure that we answer all of those questions. Yep. And again, thank you so much for attending this webinar. My contact information is on the screen. If you need to send me an email, give me a call, or reach out to me about anything I presented on here, you can do that. And when it comes to sales information, so some of you ask questions about for existing Creo users, how do I get this functionality? Those would be questions where our sales team would be able to to analyze what you currently have and let you know what you would need to get to this functionality. You can contact our sales director, Steve Seymour. His contact info is right up there, and he'd be able to direct you to the best person. And again, thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate you being on here. Thank you. And we look forward to seeing you next week on, again, a new edition of Boundaries Webinar Wednesdays. Thank you. Bye.